Hello, everyone. Welcome back in this, what is now a series of me trying to build a good task manager in Notion. If you haven't already watched part one, you might want to go do that. Although I guess if you're here live, maybe don't do that. Maybe just see what I'm up to and then go back to that video. So let's pop right back into Notion, which we've got over here. And I'll show you as a reminder what we did previously. We created a tasks database. And what we did is we put in some demo tasks, and we created a couple of ways of looking at those tasks, such as tasks that are to do, tasks that are already done, tasks that we have scheduled for certain days, tasks that have deadlines. We also tried to create a way to look at tasks that have either or that have both a deadline and a scheduled for date. And we wanted to say, hey, take the earlier of those two dates and show it on a calendar there. We didn't manage to do that, but in the meantime, I've done a little research this time. I was a little unprepared last time. In the meantime, I've done some research, and I figured out how to do that. So I'll be walking you through that. Hello, Vincent, by the way. Welcome. We set up projects. So projects being collections of tasks. And I talked yesterday about, the fact that I wanted to make a good task manager in Notion. And so a lot of people, and I've said this before, a lot of people have made, and let me remove this, by the way, there we go, have made task managers in Notion, but I find most of them not very good because they lack a couple of key features. Key features being that distinction between, hey, what's the deadline for a particular task? Like, when does it absolutely need to be done by? Or else bad things are going to happen. You don't pay your bill, you get fines or whatever. And on the other hand, when am I planning to do this task? When do I think I'm going to do this task? Because those things are not always the same, right? Most task management apps, when you look at, they just have one type of date, which is sometimes called the due date or the deadline. And it's kind of weird because you don't always want to do things last minute. I mean, that's not a very good productivity habit, is it? So we want to be able to distinguish between those two. And I think I've done that to a good degree. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. The other thing is projects. A good task manager has this concept of projects, where it's not just individual tasks, but you can group tasks into a project. A really simple definition of a project is two or more tasks that together contribute to one solid outcome, a concrete outcome, right? For example, apply for a new passport. That might have a bunch of steps, and at the end, you end up with your new passport. So we built this projects feature. We built it so that we can schedule projects and that they can have deadlines. And we're going to make this all look a little bit prettier as well today, by the way. And we linked projects to tasks. And it doesn't look super pretty as well, so it's one of the things that we're going to do today. In fact, in my task list right here, I wrote down a couple things that I want to do on this particular live stream. Maybe there'll be a part 3. Let's see how far we get today. I think, for example, we will not be getting into repeating tasks because that seems complicated. Not even sure if that's worth doing, honestly. If you're going to be using this for your actual task manager, then you probably do want to, have a repeating task functionality, but it gets complicated fast. Hey, Sed, welcome. Nice to see you. I always see you popping by when I go live. I love it, man. Nice to see you. All right, we created some areas as well. So a rudimentary feature for organizing your life into different areas, different domains. So you got, your home stuff, you got your work stuff, you got some things to do in terms of your relationships with other people, right? You got some things you got to do to take care of your health, physical health, mental health, all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to divide your tasks and projects into different areas. And so I wanted to start building that. We have a very rudimentary way of doing that right now. Maybe we'll improve it a little bit. Let's see. Then we set up some views. We set up an inbox. So any tasks that we create that don't live in a project or area, they will live in the inbox. So that's cool. Then we have a today view, and this is kind of modeled, by the way, on my favorite to-do app called Things 3, which again, I'll just quickly show you if you didn't see it in the previous video. That looks like this. So we got this nice today thing over here. We got upcoming where we can see what tasks are coming up. We've got our areas over here on the left. We got an anytime view, which I'll talk more about, a someday view, which I want to build today, a logbook, which I want to build today as well, and the inbox is loosely modeled on this. All right, let's pop back into Notion. So we've also got those upcoming and anytime views, and we're going to be improving those a little bit today. Thanks, Sed, by the way. Says in the chat, really love it. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Cool. You guys should check out Sed's channel, by the way. It's very entertaining. Great blogs over there. So cool. Alrighty, let me go into Notion and actually start doing some work. I will go over to my tasks database. And one of the things I wanted to do is demonstrate the display date formula. So I talked yesterday, or previous video, about these two different dates. Hey, let's say we have this task, pay the rent. It has a deadline, November 25th, but maybe we want to do it before then. So if we have a calendar, right? And in Notion, if you have a calendar, there's an option here where it's somewhere here. Is it properties? No. There's a button somewhere that lets you choose which date this calendar view is based on. There we go, under layout. And it says show calendar by display date. But if I do deadline, then I'll see this task, pay the rent, has a deadline of November 25th. So this is handy if you just want like a calendar view of, what deadlines are coming up, right? But wouldn't it be better if you could have a calendar view where you could not only see the deadline or tasks with deadlines, but also tasks that don't really need to be done by any specific date. Like some tasks don't have a deadline. Like it's good to get to it sooner rather than later, but like it doesn't have to be a super specific date that has to be done by. We would like to see those on the same calendar, right? But in Notion, you can only show one date property on a calendar. So I had to combine those. And either way, what I also want to do is I want to be able to say, hey, I want to show if I've got a task over here, let's say pay the rent, that I'm planning to do it on the 15th, but I have to do it by the 25th at the latest, then I want it to show up on the calendar on the 15th. But if it doesn't have this particular scheduled for date, then I want it to show up on the 25th. So what did I do? Let me clear that. I created this thing called a display date, and I was kind of struggling yesterday with the formula for this because it was kind of tricky, and I ended up writing the formula this morning because I didn't want to bore you guys with it. Because look at this beauty that we got over here, a real if statement soup. So it's messy. There's no such thing as a switch statement in Notion. For those of you who are programmers, developers, you'll be familiar with switch statements. That doesn't exist in Notion. It really sucks. So you got to nest your if statements, but I managed to do it. Essentially what I'm saying here is, listen, if only one of these two dates is filled out, then the display date should be that date. So here for this set a budget for kitchen renovation task, we have a scheduled for date. We don't have a deadline. So the display date is the scheduled for date. Or if we have this pay the rent task right here, it doesn't have a scheduled for date. It does have a deadline. Then the display date should be the deadline. If we have nothing, right? If neither has a date, then this one should be empty. And if it has both, like right here, water the plants, let's say that has a deadline of November 6th. It's hard to think of a deadline for watering the plants. I'm not going to die from one day to the other, so it's a bad example, but let's run with it. And we also have a scheduled for date, then pick the earlier of the two as the display date. So we created this column. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hide this column. So I'm going to right click on it and click hide in view because we don't really need to see that. But if I go to the calendar view and I go to this little menu right here, go to layout and just say show calendar by display date. Now we've got this beautiful thing right here where pay the rent shows up on the 25th because that is the deadline. Water the plants, which has both dates, shows up on the 3rd. And actually we can do something cool here as well. Let's go to properties and just click scheduled for and deadline. Now what you can see is that we can actually probably get rid of scheduled for maybe. There we go. If we do it this way, what's going to happen is each task that has a deadline is going to show a deadline. So this one, pay the rent, is listed on the 25th, but again shows November 25th as the deadline. But here, this water the plants task, it's listed under Thursday, the 3rd of November, but because I put a deadline on November 6th, hey, that's listed there as well. So just as a handy reminder. So I'm pretty excited that I managed to do this. I think in this case, we can actually go ahead and delete this view for only scheduled to-dos. It's not that useful. We can delete this view for to-dos with deadlines. And we can just call this the calendar view. Now, the calendar view is the one that I want to have here in upcoming as well. And I think it's currently already doing the right thing. Layout, display date. Yep. But I want to make sure that we do show that deadline on these things. Now, you can show other things, right? You can actually also show the done button. So this might be something nice to do. So we probably want to do that as well on the, let's go back to tasks, calendar, and modify the view here so that the done button is there so that we can check that off if we want to, right? And be like, boop, done or not done, right? So this is super neat. Now we have an upcoming view and it looks like this. So it's cool. I wonder if you could kind of make this calendar layout a little bit different. Doesn't look like you can do a whole lot with it, to be honest. Like you can't make it like weekly or something. I know that there is also a different view. So we're here under upcoming. We created a page for that, and we have this sort of view in here. I can create a new view, and I can say the data source is, again, tasks. And we can make this, new empty view, timeline. So I think we can do a timeline view, and things are going to look a little bit different here. So if we show the timeline by display date, then we can do the same thing. Now we have, if I just go done, and filter, perhaps, do we want to show tasks that are not done yet? I don't know if we want to show those here, to be honest with you. Done is unchecked. That's probably a good idea. Well, I don't know if we should have that. Let's remove that filter. There we go. This is a different way of looking at your tasks, and I guess we can set this to quarter, and we can set it to like week as well. So it's kind of a different way of looking at it, but I find it kind of odd. I think this works best if you assign times and not just dates. So anyway, I don't want to make things too complicated, so I'll just leave this upcoming view at this because I think this is already really dope. And if I go to my tasks and then to do, then I will say, you know what? I have demonstrated the display date formula to you guys. So that's checked off and that's gone now. And under done, you'll see that that lives right here. So what else have we got on the agenda for today? We have create a logbook functionality. Yep. Done is basically a logbook. Let's make that an official entry here under our task manager page. So I'm just going to click plus and I'll call this page logbook. And we will do database table, tasks, and based on the done view, there we go. And logbook will put it under any time. I'll give it a little icon. Log, is there something? No, not a log of wood. Like a log, like logging things. I guess logging also works with wood. That's funny. Like a book? Or like a receipt? It could be a receipt maybe. Or like bookmark tabs? Does that kind of feel, it doesn't feel that logbooky, does it now? Writing, that could be nice. There we go, like this. So it's like written down. Cool. So, I think the display date, we can hide it here. It's not that relevant. Project and area, I suppose, are interesting to keep. Scheduled for and deadline, I would say those are not so important. Done, obviously this is done. There we go. So now you can look at, let's wrap this column. How does one do that? Wrap column. Oh, nice. There we go. I'm learning Notion as I'm going along, by the way. Thanks, Mr. Thank you very much for saying that this is so useful. I love it. Okay, so there we go. We have a logbook, and we could go to the tasks and say create logbook is now checked off. And so there's a couple of other things I want to do, and I want to do the project status indicator next because that's a real fun one. Because as I'm checking off these tasks belong to this build task manager in Notion project. That's a project that I set up right here. Okay, this doesn't look very pretty right now. We're gonna see if we can make this a little bit prettier later. Okay, but what I want to do is I really want to make it so that we can have an indicator for like how far along are we in this project. So what percentage of the tasks in the project have been done. All right, what we're gonna do is let's just create a new column. Hey, Mako, I think that's how we're going to pronounce it because it sounds Dutch. Hi, nice to see you. Thanks for saying hi. Appreciate it. Let's create a new property. And we're going to call it, wait, hold on. Is it a roll-up? I think it's a roll-up. because what we're going to do is we're going to say projects are related to tasks because projects are kind of the parent of tasks. And what do we want to do? We want to take the task property, whether the task is done. This is nice. So now we got to roll up right here. So we can see this particular project is the Build a Task Manager in Notion project. It has a bunch of tasks, and some of them are done and others are not done. And what I want to do is I want to calculate the percent checked, which is 28.6%. And then I want to display that as a bar. Nice, right? I could do a ring as well. I think it's pretty dope, actually. I actually like the ring. I will stay away from modifying the colors because I'm colorblind and it will not go well. But, we'll do that. Okay, so we'll close that. Oh, we got to give it a name. So progress, maybe? There we go. We could do other types of progress. So there's this thing in Notion called the status field. Someone mentioned that yesterday. Let me just drag this over here. Should it be before name, or should it be like here? Should be like here. I like this. I think this is good because like check it off. This is the name. This is progress. Okay, doesn't matter. Anyway, there's this thing in Notion, a property type called status, which is a built-in property type, and I can use that, and then I can kind of create different status groups. So a couple of statuses that are basically to do, a couple of statuses that are in progress, a couple of statuses that are complete. And then you can do a Kanban board, which some people really like. The reason, I talked about this yesterday, that I don't actually like doing this. For projects, it might make slightly more sense, but someone asked me yesterday, shouldn't you do that for tasks? Hi, Remy. And the reason that I'm not doing that for tasks is because I like to get my tasks so clearly defined that I usually I either haven't started them or they're done. So they're narrowly defined. So for something like pay the rent, there's no in progress. You just go and do that. You don't stop in the middle and halfway. It's meaningless to be halfway because you've either paid it or you haven't. That's, of course, not always true. You could say, well, I am in the process of watering the plants. I have watered half the plants in my house. Okay. In that case, fine, that'll happen sometimes. I'll just leave it unchecked. I just don't find it that useful to keep track of things that are, quote, in progress. Let me just switch to myself for a second as I'm explaining this. And I can also check whether the camera is in focus because it keeps going out of focus and is annoying. But, the thing is, for projects, maybe, but that's why I have this auto-calculating progress circle now. And I also don't like for tasks, I want to discourage myself from having lots of things being in progress, I think we all know that, generally speaking, you'll be more productive if you focus on one thing at a time. And it's not that helpful to be halfway down 12 different things. So I kind of want to discourage myself from getting too stuck on things and calling them in progress. And also, I like to be really clear on what parts of larger things, so larger tasks, which end up being projects, I've done and which I've not. So if I have a project, it has 12 subtasks or 12 tasks inside the project, maybe I've done the first 5, but then I have discreetly completed those first 5 and not the other 7, So if something is big enough that you feel like you need to have this in progress thing, it's probably just a project, and you need to break it down into smaller chunks. I guess that's what I'm saying. All right, back to Notion. So we have a project status indicator. I do want to see if maybe on today we do list our projects over here. And I want to show that. So I want to show the, Mako says, focus always goes to the boom arm. Yeah, I know. That's annoying, right? It's like this. Maybe like this is a bit better, maybe. Maybe now it will sort of stay on me. Let's hope so. Yeah, it was the same part 1. I noticed that. I don't know why it's supposed to look at my face. It's not supposed to focus on my face. I don't know why it thinks the boom arm is my face. But anyway, thanks for the tip. Let's see if it works better this way. Okay, so let's show this progress feature here in the projects that we have on the today view, and then I'll just make that a bit smaller. And I also want to actually, now that I'm here, what I want to do is I want to organize these guys, these projects, or by area, group them by area. So I think there's like a way to do that. Group by area. Bada bing. And yeah, no area. Yeah, see, everything should have an area. So that means that this project over here, I haven't assigned an area. We're going to call it work. Boom. No problem. And then what we can do is we can go into group and say hide empty groups. I think that's nice. There you go. Boom. So now we can see that we've got a dummy project. But I think this is nice. Now we can hide area because we're already showing area here. I know this is not super pretty, by the way. Part of the thing that I'm doing here is I'm sort of learning about Notion because I'm somewhat proficient with Notion, but I don't use it all the time, and I don't really use it for too many complicated things. So part of this is just me figuring out how far can I go in Notion, and really not how far I can go because that sounds really maximalist, but can I make a task manager that is useful, that I would be happy to recommend to someone, if they didn't want to or could not use a dedicated app like Things 3, which is my favorite app, the one that I use, can I make it into something that's good enough to actually recommend it to people? That's kind of, I'm curious about that. So that's what we're finding out here. All right, let's see. For tasks, maybe make this a little bit prettier as well. Let's group those by area as well. And we'll hide area first. Group by area. I think you cannot group by two things. I'll just hide that view or hide that property actually. Progress I want to see. Right now progress doesn't show anything if there's no subtasks. Okay, maybe that's something that we can work on later as well. And another thing that I thought about is the upcoming view currently shows tasks, but it does not show projects. But for projects, we do have a scheduled for date and a deadline. And I would really like for this upcoming view to be able to show both, but unfortunately I just think that a limitation of Notion is because these are two different data types, we're not going to be able to show both of those on upcoming. Now, I've watched some videos by other YouTubers where their concept of projects is more like there's one table that has tasks and projects are just kind of like super tasks, and they relate the table to itself and blah, blah. Quite complicated. Maybe I'll do that in a future video, maybe not. I might need to experiment with that a little bit more before I consider doing that. But that would be one way of trying to get them all on one calendar view. But here what we're going to do is we're just going to say tasks. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new one. And we're going to call it projects. It'll be a calendar, and it'll be based on the display. The display date doesn't work yet. Okay, so that's another thing that we're going to do. There we go. We got a bunch of things to do. So projects. Okay, so we're going to go into projects, and I need to unhide. Where are the hidden ones? Display date. So I have this beautiful formula for display date, which I have to unhide here as well. Oh my. And I am just going to have to copy this, hide again, then go to projects, go to display date, bump it in. That works now. Okay, we can hide it again. There we go. If I'm going a little fast, sorry. Let me know. It's so hard to calibrate yourself when you're doing this, whether you're recording and then putting it on YouTube later or whether you're on live. Speed is hard to calibrate. Edit view layout based on the display date. Okay, there we go. So now it shows that yesterday we planned to buy new studio lights, and today we are planning to build a task manager in Notion. Now, a cool thing that we can do, of course, in this calendar view is we can show some properties. So, for example, we can show the progress. This is nice, right? I think this looks pretty cool. We can show the done thing. Maybe we can actually kind of put it like this. Like that better. Yeah, we can show some other stuff if we want. We can show like the area. Doesn't make that much sense. We can show tasks if we want to. I think that makes it a little bit cluttered. But, that's obviously one of the things about Notion, right, is you can customize it to an insane degree. And that's kind of part of the experiment that I'm doing here, is I'm trying to figure out, can I build something that works, that is simple to use, easy to use, Thanks, Marco, for telling me it's not too fast. Appreciate it. And that limits how much you're going to want to tinker with it. So one of the reasons that I use Notion to a limited degree, that I don't usually recommend people use Notion for task management, is because many people will tinker way too much with Notion rather than actually doing their work. Whereas if you use an app like Things3, like OmniFocus, or even an app like Todoist, you're going to tinker less. Although I have to say about OmniFocus specifically, for those of you who are familiar with OmniFocus, you can do a decent amount of tinkering with that as well, but nowhere near Notion level. Like Notion is just so much tinkering. And especially, I sometimes see people saying like, I'm going to put everything in Notion. I'm also going to put my notes in Notion and, other things, whatever, documents, blah, blah. And I'm going to link that all together. And like, I understand the urge, but to me, it's kind of the same thing as this whole idea of building a second brain, or using an app like Obsidian where you've got a network and you're like linking everything together. It's like, if you find that fun, then that's great, but just admit to yourself that you're doing it for fun. I am skeptical that for many people, the time invested in making those connections will actually pay off in terms of achieving their goals or making more progress on their goals, It's possible, but I think for most people, probably not. At least not the people that I tend to talk to and work with. But again, like I said, like if it's fun, that's great. Just admit to yourself that you're doing it for fun and not productivity, Or if you're sort of in the small minority of people, what I think is a small minority where it helps, hey, that's great. But, here in Notion, even though we're building a task manager, I'm trying to keep it simple. All right, cool. Where were we? We were making things prettier. We grouped projects. The group project space by area. Yeah, we did that. That looks nice now, right? This by area. I mean, sort of looks nice. Is there an icon here that we can change? Or is there not? Because this is just a page. Can a page have an icon in Notion? Because it can. Oh, money. I always love this one. Yeah, no, not this one. Different money one. Bag of money. There we go. Let's do health. Oy, I love it. Sauna. Oh, yeah, I love this one. Home. That's easy. No, not a cover. No. Remove. The icon. Little house. And work. And an icon. What is a work icon? Yeah, suitcase or briefcase. Office building. No, I like the briefcase better, to be honest with you. Briefs. Okay, cool. This looks a little bit nicer already. A little bit nicer, I am very much a newbie at making Notion look pretty, but I'm also just generally not the world's best designer, so I don't know how far we're gonna get with making it look pretty. But there's some progress. Okay. Back in here, and what you'll see, by the way, is that I haven't built any sort of subtasks feature yet. So, if you're in a task manager like OmniFocus, you can create as many levels of tasks as you want, nested tasks. If you're using a task manager like Things3, then you'll have tasks, and tasks can have checklists inside of them. I haven't built anything like that. But what I did do is, for this particular task, I wanted to create some subtasks. I just opened the page by clicking open. And then I just went here, and the way you do this actually is just sort of one of these square brackets and then another square bracket, and if you put those together, it makes a to-do. There you go. You can check it off. These are not real tasks. They don't live in the tasks database, but for something quick, I like this. So hide the display date. We've done that. Have we done that everywhere? No. Hide the display date. And while we're at it in the inbox, there is no area. There is no project. That's the whole point. Things will be, let's wrap the column. Yeah. Things live in the inbox if they haven't been assigned to an area or a project yet. Under today, we have tasks. These live under no area. Right. Yeah, so one interesting thing that I have with my data model right now is project. If I have this project, let's build a task manager in Notion, yeah, that is assigned to the work area. But that doesn't automatically mean that the tasks that are part of it, like create the someday feature, also live in that work area. You have to manually assign that, which I don't like. And I might need to fix that. I don't know if I'll get around to that on this particular, day in this particular video. That would be one reason why it might be interesting to have tasks or have projects technically be tasks in the same database. Maybe I'll look into that before I do the next part. Let's see. Okay. Let's just go through all these views and just make them a little bit prettier if we need to. So these are inbox tasks. Perfect. I guess one reason to show area on project right here is to quickly assign them, because otherwise you have to go in here and assign it to an area. But I think that makes more sense. It feels weird to me to have those columns. You can just go in here and edit property area. There you go. You could do that. There might even be shortcuts for this. I don't know. Today. Okay. Now we have tasks broken down by area. That looks good. If there is a project, the project will show. Okay. Upcoming, yay, we've got tasks and projects all listed on this calendar, which I think is cool. We can look at two different things. Again, I wish I could combine those, but I don't know how to do that yet. Anytime, talked about this in the previous video, anytime is a list of tasks that do not have a deadline or a scheduled for date. So, no, that's wrong. They do not have a scheduled for date. They are allowed to have a deadline. So basically, what we're saying is these tasks, you have some time, you sit down and you want, hey, what can I do now? Because if I already plan to do something on Thursday and today is not Thursday, I might not want to work on that. I might want to work on some other things, So that's what this is designed to do. And I think that's pretty neat. If we go into the filter, you can see what we did here. I basically said where scheduled for is empty or where scheduled for is today. I do want to show the ones where scheduled for is today because, if I plan to work on it today, then it's kind of in the same category of tasks. You know what I mean? Hope you know what I mean. Now, right now we're just showing a column work, but again, we can actually go ahead and hide that and group this stuff by area. Group by area. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're starting to get this little overview of particular areas that we have actually like purpose-built task managers that I think is pretty cool. Let's see how we're doing. 37 minutes. All right, we got some time. Cool. Deadline, we probably want to keep that in. I want to see if there's a prettier way of showing this, to be honest with you. But notes, do I want to keep the project here? Yeah. We might have to work on that later. There is another way to show this. So I can say, I want to show tasks here. And just to do. And let's just filter. Yeah, okay. Good. Okay, good. And what we can do is say show as, is it board? I forget which one it is. Well, this is confusing. I think it's board. List. Yeah, so we could show it this way. It might be a little bit nicer because it's not, you don't have this like database table-y feel. But yeah, I feel like board should be the other one. It's just that when I if I say I want to show it as a board, but then I have to there we go. I have to turn off grouping then. Group by, no. Group by, I guess because it's a board, you have to group, but that is pretty weird. A subgroup, none. Subgroup can be project, though. Oh, did I do that right? No, because now we have, no, that doesn't work. Okay, so subgroup is going to be off. Ooh, we might need to look at this more later. Anyway. This is another way you can do it, right? So to do, we can call this, whoa, what's happening there? Oh, there we go. Rename to do table. And this one, we can call it to do board. Yeah, just a different way of looking at your tasks. I do want to make sure that I show the done thing everywhere. And perhaps here we could also show the deadline. But it just says November 25th. You see, it doesn't say deadline November 25th. Okay, Anyway, just a different way of looking at it. But I'm pretty happy with the anytime view now. Logbook. This is just, what I want to see here is just a list of tasks I've completed. I don't really want to see too much information about those tasks, like what area or project they were part of. I feel like that's not the point. So maybe we should actually change the layout and just make this a list, just like this. And it's going to be a very long list. And I think that's fine. We can perhaps group it by the date completed. Is that a thing? That's interesting. Let's take a look in the task. If we create a new property. Yeah, no, because how will it know when we check this box, right? Because if we go and create properties here, there's definitely there's a last edited time. That's interesting. Last edited time. So if we have that property and we just hide it, I wonder if that means that in logbook we can actually group these by last edited time. Nice. It does mean now that if I go in and I change the name of it, it'll change them, right? I want to flip this around, by the way. Sort newest first. There you go. But this is basically what I want. This is nice. Visible groups today, yesterday. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. A date by relative. Okay, I think relative is going to be like today, yesterday, past 7 days, something like that. Yeah, it's working out nicely. There we go. Look at that logbook. It's coming up pretty decently, I think. Now, we could, if we wanted to, put that done button back here. It won't even show it right now. So I guess we can't. I lied. Oops. But yeah, you can always click on it and undo it if you feel like, actually, you know what? Whoops. No, I didn't finish it. But I think we had a pretty solid logbook here, to be honest with you. Okay. Areas. So this is not a page where you're going to spend a whole lot of time because we're going to have we have this anytime view, right? Where we're going to spend a lot of time, and the today view where we're going to spend a lot of time. It's also organized by area. Areas is just going to be, what are the areas of your life? That's not going to change too much. I mean, maybe sometimes you start a new volunteer commitment and you want to create a new area for that. That could be the case. Then you might want to create a new one, but you're probably not going to change this every day, you know? So I think this could totally just be a list. These are the areas of my life. This one needs an icon. Relationships, come on, heart. There we go. Sorry, what did we call that? Heavy black heart. I don't know. I mean, I'm colorblind, but I'm pretty sure there's a red, though. I'm pretty sure there's a red. There's icons now, too. So we could do, if we wanted to, we could make this stuff icons rather than emoji, which is, I guess a more flat way of looking at things. That could be fun. But I'm not going to bore you guys with that. There we go. Boom. Fun and trips. Plane. Airplane. Great. Cool. So if you want to create a new area, just do it right here, right? And then you add an icon and you add stuff. You can even write notes to yourself. You could even be like, stuff, for example, I could call this volunteering. You'd be like, stuff related to my food bank work. I don't help out with the food bank. This is a completely, hypothetical example. Goes here, but stuff related to, other project does not. You could do something like that, just to help yourself, as a reminder, right? Anyway, I'll delete that one because it's not relevant. But that's how you would do that. Dope. Projects, right, what have we got here? We have them organized by area. And I feel like I tried to show the empty groups, but it just can't. They're like the empty areas, but you can't, which is fine, I guess. What do we want to see? We want to see the progress. We want to see when they're scheduled for and what their deadline is. Everything else we can probably just click into it and see it. Okay. Let's, by the way, just do a little example here for apply for new password. What might be the tasks there? Does it work like this? It might be like, search photographers on Google Maps. Ask photographer whether, or ask, you know, the business that you chose, whether they can do passport format photos. Make appointment. And did that not get created? It did. Okay. That's about it. Well, and then, no, I guess we have to send envelope with photos or something like that, you know. Maybe this is not what you would actually do. Anyway, just wanted to have another example of a project with some tasks. Okay, so happy with projects. Go back to tasks. Good. Make various views look prettier. Add today page to Notion favorites. Yes, so Notion has a favorites feature. It's very easy. You right-click something, you go add to favorites, and then it shows up here. So this is helpful, especially once you start doing lots of things in Notion. It's just helpful to have it up here. Okay, done. And boom. It's so fun that we can already use this task manager that we're building to create tasks to improve it. I think that's cool. Now, you see that today, if you sort of expand it, it has a view of project and a view of tasks listed under it, which is, I guess, just the sort of the two components of it. So, but we'll leave that collapse for now. Okay, next thing to do. Let's go. I got two more things I wanted to do in this video. Create a reminder functionality. This is actually not something that we have to create. I can just show you. So I will actually call it demonstrate reminder functionality. Because one of the things you might want out of your task manager is reminders, is notifications. Now, notifications and reminders are not the same thing, but reminders almost always come in the form of a notification. So how do you do this? Well, let's say I've got this task right here that I need to pay the rent, and the deadline is November 25th. But maybe, you know, you're a little bit of a flake. You sometimes forget about things. One thing you can do is you can go in here and actually say, remind me on the day of, one day before, 2 days before. So I say on the day of at 9 a.m. What that will do is, first of all, you see a little clock icon. It'll literally just send you a push notification at that time. Boom, that's done. So we didn't need to program this. This is just how it works. And you can do that based off of the scheduled for date as well, if you want to. So if on November 4th you want to be reminded to set a budget for the kitchen renovation, you can just go in here and click one of these things. Now, one of the cool things is here, the deadline for pay the rent is only a date. There's no time. So we can actually say include time. And let's say the deadline is 5 p.m., okay? Boom. Now it's 5 p.m., okay? The reminder is not going to come at 5 p.m. because the reminder, we set it separately. But now, well, it actually changed it for us because once you set a time, you get more options in your reminder. You get the same one that's 1 day before, etc., but you also get at time of event because we've assigned a time to it. 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before. So we can say 2 hours before, remind me. Because you really ought to have done it at least 2 hours before it's due, right? There we go. And the same thing with the scheduled for. Let's say you're saying, you know, I want to water the plants on November 3rd. Actually, you know what? Let's do set a budget for kitchen renovation. What you can do is you can say, you know what? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this at 10 a.m. Whoa, don't work. On November 4th. And you can actually, in Notion, also set an end date. So you can say, you know what? I'm going to be working on that until noon. You can do that. 12 p.m. There we go. You can do that. And what you can do is you can set a reminder at a specific time. Okay, so that's how reminders work. By the way, how do these date ranges affect the calendar? That's a good question. I would like to know how they affect the display date. If I go, no. I need to unhide it. Oh, how do you? Properties, display date. Did that break? No. Interesting. The display date is still that. So if I go to my calendar now, let's hide it again. So if I go to my calendar, then yeah, so we have watered the plants, and now it's actually listed with, nope, it wasn't that one. Which one was it? Set a budget for kitchen renovation. This one. See, it's listed at 10 a.m., but it also has an end time. Now, the end time isn't listed on here, but if I go ahead and create a new view, and I do the timeline view. And I show the timeline by display date. And then I filter it on today, so hours. Then you'll see that all of these are sort of all-day things, except for set a budget for kitchen renovation, which is for November 4th, from 10 to noon. So you could do time blocking with Notion. Now, I don't personally time block my time. It's just not something that I do. I don't find it that helpful. In fact, I find it stressful. So that's why I don't do it. But if you wanted to do it, you could build that into this task manager, which is cool because I always get people asking me, oh, how can I time block in Things 3? Oh, how can I time block in OmniFocus? And there's not really a good way to do it. Whereas a task manager like Todoist will kind of sync your tasks if you've assigned them to specific date ranges to, for example, your Google Calendar and put them on the calendar for a specific time. So for some people, that's really useful. I can totally get that. It's just, I don't do that. All right, so we got about 10 minutes left. So I showed you how to set reminders. And again, they'll just notify you. Easy. Let's demonstrate reminder functionality. Boom, done. See, lives in the logbook now. Yay. So cool, so cool. Within today, they're not sorted. Who cares? Who cares? I care a little bit. Sort by last edited time. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Now they're sorted by. It's just amazing. All right, great. So, create a someday feature. This is fun. Okay, back to Things 3. So in Things 3, we've got this thing called Someday. And that's this feature right here. This is Someday. So someday is a list of things that I might want to do someday. Maybe. Maybe. And that's interesting because the way you do this in Things is you take a particular task, and if you hit Command S, I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you guys see? Okay, yeah. You get this when panel. This is what I call the scheduled for date in Notion. And you can assign it a date. Today, this evening, or a date, or someday. Okay? So you can't say it's scheduled for the 24th and it's scheduled for someday. So it's either no specific date, a specific date, or someday. Those are your options. And I think that's really intuitive. I wanted to replicate that in Notion. But that's really hard because in Notion, this is a date field. Scheduled for right here is a date field. And you cannot just type in here someday. So there's not a super elegant way to do this. What we can do is we can create a new property. And we can just call it someday. And we can make it a checkbox. And we can even call it someday maybe. Something like this. And so then we can drag that right here. Which, again, I don't think this is very pretty, but this is a way to do it. And you could even just shorten it to someday if you really wanted it to be a bit smaller. And we can check or uncheck that. And then what we can do is we can actually, when this box is checked, we can remove this particular task from certain views. So we can remove it from the anytime view. We can remove it from upcoming, etc. Well, upcoming is not going to show because it has, because what we want to do basically is we would want that to override scheduled for anyway, not the deadline. If there's a deadline, we should have that. But we would want it to override scheduled for. That's going to be really hard to do. So my inclination would be to not have something like that. My inclination would be, if it's really important to you to have a someday feature and you wanted to use your own task manager in Notion, would be to instead use a status. So then, rather than having this checkbox of whether a task is done or not, creating a property and doing status. And you can call it status. Let me just drag that forward. I'll keep done for now because I'm just want to show you how you might do this. And you could go ahead and click Edit Property. And you can create a couple different statuses. So to do, you can add one and call it someday. right? This is something that is still to do. Although you could imagine that maybe something is in progress. The thing is, I don't like this in progress thing, man. I don't like it. Delete. I don't like it. I want something to be to do or complete. There we go. So you do it this way. And you could sort of have this one not started called to do, right? And this one could be called someday maybe, you know? And that way, what you could do is you could say, okay, when I'm done with something, I will complete it. So I will assign it a status of done. And then you just have to go and update everywhere so that your done thing filters on status is done rather than on, column done, property done is done, right? But you could also have a status of someday maybe. Make it slightly bigger so it fits in. And then what you could do is you could say, if the status is someday maybe, don't show it under to do. Don't show it under done, right? I think that's a little bit cleaner of a way of doing it because then you don't have two checkboxes whose interaction you're going to have to work with. There's just one status. You're still going to have the problem that you'd really ideally like there to be a someday date, right? You'd like to do that, to have that, but you're still going to have that problem, unfortunately, in Notion. Let me know if you can think of a better way of doing this, by the way, because then I might do another video and make it better. But I can't think of something like that right now. Now, one thing that you could do, right? One thing that you could do is you could say something like, you know what? Someday is actually just going to be January 1st in the year 3000. You could do that, right? And you could then create sort of filter rules where any date that is in the year 3000, don't show it. It's obviously already not going to show because you're not going to browse there, right? So that's kind of a hack around it as well. And honestly might be the way that I would do it because then what you can do is you can then use this particular scheduled for date to denote this someday feature. Maybe I should briefly explain what the point is of someday. The point of someday is to be able to tell yourself, this is not something I'm going to work on anytime soon. I want to see only actionable items, like things that I might actually work on today. So if I'm asking myself, what should I work on today? I'd rather see the 12 to 20 things that I'd like to get to soon. Let's say soon is like in the next 2 weeks or something. I don't want to see things that I'm not planning on working on in the next 2 weeks or at least in the next month or something like that, right? Like if I'm definitely not going to get to this until next month, why do I need to see it every single time when deciding what to do today? That doesn't make sense to me. It just makes it harder to choose what to work on today. That's the whole point of someday, okay? Anyway, so these are a couple of ways of doing that. But what I'll do for now is I'll delete this because I really don't love this. And I'll set this one back to today. There we go. Go back to tasks. And I will rewrite this as offer suggestions for how to create a someday feature, because that's pretty much what I did. Okay. That's where we are so far. I would like to create repeating task functionality in Notion. Not sure if I can do it well without resorting to third-party apps and stuff. And there's a couple of improvements that I like to make for next time as well. I want to make things look a little bit prettier. I want to do some experimenting with how is it going to work if we add attachments and everything. But we've been at this for 58 minutes already in this video. So I just want to say thanks so much for watching. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. Let me know. Comment on it, because it's nice for me to hear if you guys appreciate it. I might be back with this if I come up with some ideas on how to improve it. I plan to. It's been fun. I'd like to see if I can make it a little bit better still. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See you next time. Ciao, ciao.